Hello, I'm Kiran Kapur of the Cambridge Marketing College. I'm at the Imperial War Museum at Duxford, which, as well as being a museum, is also a conference venue and was the venue for the Cambridge Digital Marketing Conference earlier this year. This is the first of a series of interviews with the speakers from the conference. And today my guest is Mike Reynolds of the Internet Advertising Bureau. Mike, you're the Mobile and Video Manager and you look at the Internet Advertising Bureau. I always have to check that one. And it's IAB UK, isn't it? So you've just done a great talk on everything to do with mobile. Can we start with some of the stats you had? Because there were some amazing stats about the way consumers use mobile.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we've seen, an explosion in people using devices. So I think one of the stats that I shared was that now the average UK household owns just over 8 sort of different digital devices, which is crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, you could see everyone in the audience immediately thinking, how many have I got at home? And thinking,
yeah.
Actually, if that's the average, some of us have got a lot more than that.
Well, yeah, exactly. In terms of time spent on those devices, we're at a point where people are spending just under kind of 3 hours a day, kind of consuming content across mobile, tablet and desktop. And
you have this phrase that was non-voice use, so it's using mobiles but actually not for phoning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's it's the pocket computer, it's social media, it's news apps, it's shopping, it's everything. And actually for a lot of people, certainly the younger demographic, the smartphone is the device that they kind of turn to first. And actually, they don't necessarily use kind of desktops anymore. We actually did a piece of research that found that for 18 to 24-year-olds, they'd rather, the household item they'd rather do without is their fridge versus their smartphone. So I don't know what that says about
if the house was burning down, they'd grab their smartphone first?
Pretty much, yeah.
Right, okay.
I'm not sure what that says about their sort of cooking or dietary habits,
yeah.
But I guess it'll take up.
So what age group was that? Was it teenagers?
18 to 24,
oh,
yeah.
Oh, right, so not just teenagers, so well, it wouldn't matter because mum would restock the fridge?
Yes, yeah. No, people that need to sustain.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about older generations? Do they use mobiles as much, or there's always a view that over a certain age you don't use mobiles?
No, yeah. So it's certainly, not as kind of much as, I guess, more tech-savvy millennials. So overall smartphone penetration in the UK is about 75%. I think for the older generation, it's about 30%. So it's still, something that is pretty kind of prevalent within the older generation. And actually, I think tablets are something that older people tend to feel more comfortable using. Certainly my grandparents, have a tablet but still have a kind of
something to do with the screen size, isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and you had you also talked about the amount of digital advertising that we're now done on mobile.
Yeah, so that's really interesting and something that we've seen massive growth in. So at the IAB we measure the size of the kind of digital advertising market. That's our kind of flagship project. So for 2015, just over £8.6 billion was spent on digital kind of overall, and that's the largest share of media in the UK, about 40% of kind of total media, including TV, print, and all the other stuff. And actually, mobile accounts for 30% of that, so that's just over 2.6 billion, and it's seen a year-on-year growth of about 60%. And actually, a real catalyst to sort of overall digital growth is the growth in kind of mobile specific spend.
So yeah. Can you see a time when it's nearly all mobile?
Yeah, well, I think it'll probably never get to a point where it's all mobile, but it's certainly headed towards mobile becoming the majority. And that's purely because of the stuff I spoke about, from a consumer point of view, that's where they're choosing to spend their kind of connected time, and advertisers kind of have to follow the consumer.
And just from my understanding, do tablets count as mobile, or is that seen as something a bit different?
So in our study, tablets is actually separate. For a lot of businesses, advertisers certainly, they would consider tablets to be mobile, but in our ad spend numbers, so tablet is at about £130 million in terms of ad spend. And that's purely because time spent on tablets it doesn't take a large share of the kind of overall time spent online. So there's not as much investment in kind of tablet stuff.
Okay. You talked about advertisers, and one of the other things you had was how brands were optimising to use mobile. And you had some quite strong views on that.
Yes, yeah. So actually for the last few years, we've done a lot of work that looks at kind of brands' mobile presence, I guess. So across, things like sites and apps. And in our latest piece, we looked at the top 250 advertisers and found that 84% of them now have a mobile site, which is great to see. I think when we first measured it, it was around 30%. That was a few years ago, and actually that's been kind of heavily driven by the growth in what's called responsive web design, which is a kind of way of developing websites that works across mobile, tablet, and desktop.
Yeah, when it first started, we all had one desktop site, and then you created a separate mobile one.
Exactly.
Whereas responsive helped us do that, so it's all seamless.
It's all seamless, and from a brand's point of view, it's all in one place. The CRM systems work across all the different devices, and from a consumer point of view, it's that consistent kind of experience, I guess. But that said, I think one of the issues with responsive web design is that people develop using it and think they've kind of ticked the mobile box, but actually because consumer behaviour is different on mobile, they have to think a little bit differently about the content that they're kind of showing people. And
how's behaviour different?
Well, I think certainly, if you take sort of retail, for example, if I'm searching for a retailer on my mobile and going through to their responsive site, I'm probably expecting a store locator or something that shows me where my nearest store is, and actually mobile allows you to do that because it's got that sort of GPS location layer built into it. So consumers expect basically to be able to sort of go to mobile sites and have slightly different experiences, I think.
Okay, so advertisers forget that at their peril.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if they forget it. I just it's maybe overlooked, or they think they've got a responsive site that's sort of done, but actually you've got to sort of delight your customers, I guess, across the different devices.
So the other thing you talked about, you had some of the new things that were coming in, and you talked a lot about virtual reality, which I still tend to think of as sort of Oculus Rift and something that might appear in film. So can you actually see virtual reality becoming a big thing?
Yes, I can. I really do think so. I mean, from my own experience using it, I think it's brilliant. And so I went to Mobile World Congress at the start of the year, which is a big sort of technology conference, which happens to be in Barcelona, which is always nice.
Yes.
And it's in a massive conference sort of centre, and you couldn't walk sort of 100 metres without being sort of shown a new VR kind of headset. Facebook, invested in Oculus Rift. They've done a sort of partnership with Samsung. So when massive internet companies are kind of investing in something like that, I think it's worth looking at. I guess for me, I think it will be the sort of film industry and also gaming, which is where we'll see it kind of take off initially. And then brands will kind of slowly create more immersive experiences. Yeah,
we're sort of feeling like it's a little bit I'll try it out just to get the awards, as you suggested.
Yes, and actually, so it was the Cannes sort of Festival of Creativity a couple of weeks ago, and the Grand Prix winner, which is the most prestigious, was a virtual reality sort of example where the New York Times, I think it was, created a sort of really immersive newspaper, basically. So it's kind of, it bridges online with offline. But there are brands using it already. So I showed an example actually of Virgin Holidays, and they created this experience in store that if you were queuing, you could put on a headset. And actually, you could go to different destinations and look at different holidays, which is actually, really kind of cool and nice use case. And it actually sort of, I think, drives their business, objectives. It's not just sort of gimmicky. And also with, Google, they've created a VR headset that's like £10, I think. So Google Cardboard, where you slot in your either iPhone or Android phone, and you have a pretty cool experience. So I think with more tech like that, probably the sort of penetration of it will, we'll see it increase.
I suppose it's like when smartphones first came in, it was all sort of wow, and they were really expensive, and now they're just standard every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And who'd have thought, when the iPhone first launched, 70-80% of the UK population will now sort of have a smartphone. But I think it might take slightly longer with VR, to be honest.
It's difficult to see quite how it fits in, and I think there are problems with certainly people like me. I mean, I always find I feel a little bit sick when I try Oculus Rift and things. Yeah. So I think there are problems for some people. It's not for everybody.
No, it's not. Do you know what? I actually think what's also interesting is the sort of YouTube community doing cool stuff with virtual reality. So, bloggers or vloggers.
Mike Reynolds of the IAB, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you for having me.